just surrounding yourself with a really strong team with the diverse expertise that you need. And I think before you can do that, you have to be really honest with yourself about what your current skill set is.
Is there sort of a kernel of wisdom? Are there a couple of things that you would want to impart, that you would want to leave with people based on some of the experiences that you've had in your businesses? Just something, some nugget that you would want to leave them with? Anyone?
I'd say focus. I think someone mentioned it earlier. You're going to be very, it's a challenge to keep on the track that you're currently on and focus generally wins the day is my experience. So if you can focus on an end goal, it's very difficult because someone's going to come in and say there's another opportunity over here that you know, if you just shift and go over here and that. You need to be able to shift, but you don't want to react to new information. As we said, it's coming in weekly, it's coming in daily, and if you don't, you're not going to get the company anywhere. So focus is a big element. I think get on the path and make decisions, keep it moving forward. If the landscape changes, which in healthcare it does, we had the clinical guidelines change on us, and we had to think about what the impact on us are. Take those into account, but try and keep on track so that your team, you know, can continue to execute on that. I think one thing. There's 100 things. That's probably.
Really, yeah. But that is important. Yeah.
I'd say it's going to take you longer to get your idea off the ground than you think every time. Therefore, you're going to need more money. You'll probably be raising money it'll be your job for the first good chunk of your time as a startup and entrepreneur. Like you'll almost do nothing else. It'll occupy so much of your time. And being good at that is very important. You want to bring in good investors that are a good fit with your company because you want people who share your vision and are investing in the company and you have alignment on your goals. If you're desperate for cash, you can often bring people in who will say, well, I own the company now and my vision's a little bit different. I want an exit in 2 years and that's what we're going to do. And it can be a very tricky thing. It's very tricky for entrepreneurs to give up control when they bring investors in, but you know, you do have to be a little bit picky. Even though you really want the money, you have to find a good fit. You need good investors who are aligned with your vision. Otherwise, you're going to get problems down the road that you don't want. So.
Yeah, that's great advice.
I'm going to say just surrounding yourself with a really strong team with the diverse expertise that you need. And I think before you can do that, you have to be really honest with yourself about what your current skill set is. Nobody's good at everything. And so just be really clear with yourself what you are good at and what the gaps are, and then make sure the people that you bring on board fill those gaps. I think what I've experienced is there's a really delicate balance between being confident and going out there and making the sale and talking to investors versus being humble enough to realize what your gaps are and also to be able to listen to the client. And so yes, you do have to stay on your path at the same time. Make sure that path is slightly adjustable, just for the client feedback, because it does, at the end of the day, they have to purchase it. They're the ones using it. So it does have to fit.
Maybe just on a personal note, I'm sure the audience is probably curious about whether you just woke up one day and decided you wanted to be an entrepreneur, whether that was kind of in your DNA, or whether there was some sort of defining moment that led you there. So I'll just open up. Maybe Sarah.
Yeah, I'll go first. I don't know if my answer is going to be a little bit rogue in this audience, but no, I did not choose or wake up thinking, I think I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I was actually very happy in my work prior to the company. I had an amazing job. My entrepreneur days grew out of a vision through that initial conversation that I mentioned with the other two of the other co-founders in the beginning, where our conversation just flowed into a point of such inspiration that I realized that in order to actually accomplish this, I couldn't do it inside the walls of the hospital, and even if I had wanted to. And hospitals can be amazing with innovation. They can get so far, but if you really have a much larger vision, sometimes you have to be nimble. You have to be able to do those rapid cycle tests, be able to make those changes really quickly, be able to expand beyond the walls of just 1-2 hospitals. And so that's where it came for me. And I'm not sure I've ever actually envisioned myself under the label entrepreneur. Maybe not until this talk, but I suppose I'm there now. And the business side is the side I'm learning all the time. I'm so fortunate to be surrounded by an executive team that actually knows the business aspects really well, knows the technology aspects really well. And so I think every day for us, we're just teaching each other. And so for me, I'm sort of a newer entrepreneur. I'm still learning about it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think there are naturals out there because my older sister is a true born entrepreneur. She just went out on her own path at 17 and didn't look back, and has a equestrian apparel company, massively successful, and did it without any of, no funding, no background in design. So when you see that, I go, okay, you're a natural. I am not like that. I went to school, I studied, and David very much was had a good career on Wall Street, and he had this idea for a couple of years, and it took. He just said, well, I think it's going to work. I think it's going to work, but I'm never going to know unless I quit my job and focus on it and actually and sort of take that risk. And that's tough to do. When you, let's say, have other people in your life, they're counting on you to help pay the mortgage, or and David he was always very concerned about other people. So a big moment in the company is when we started hiring employees instead of using contractors. That was a huge amount of stress for him and sort of a big decision. Almost as tough as deciding to go for the idea and be an entrepreneur and go it on your own. Because he says, well, if I fall flat in my face, at the time he was delusional. So he says, it'll take 6 months. I'll know in 6 months and we'll be done. And it didn't turn out that way. Luckily, it's quite successful. But yeah, it took him a while, for sure.
Yeah, I think I probably had a bit of a risk-taking element to it. Like I always aspired to that type of environment, or an environment where I felt I could make an impact. So I think that was very important to me. But I started my career in a mid-sized $100 million company, which gave me some good foundation. I have some experience in a larger organization like a J&J and Hologic that gave different perspective. I think each of those bring different perspective. But ultimately, I always found that I wanted to go back to that more emerging stage. And there's no right answer for people. I always encourage people to come to me and ask the question about, should I be in a startup? Should I be in a large company? There's merit to both. There's personality differences that will make something more comfortable for someone not. And I always look at the skill sets that for these emerging companies. If you're more comfortable being more of a generalist, having a very horizontal skill set, but having your hands on a bunch of things then that's a good fit. If you want to be someone that's an expert in something very, very deep, then a large company can provide some real value and real skills and support to develop that. The hardest thing for people, I find, is going through that transition of skill sets as we're growing. As hopefully with success, you're growing, and your skills requirements you have to put more in a box, and that's very uncomfortable for people to go through. And the best advice I had was from an individual that used to come into a company, and he said, if people are familiar with Jeffrey Moore's crossing the chasm and the product adoption curve, he adapted that to marketing, which was his skill set. And he said, listen, I know that in marketing at this particular part on the curve, that's what I like doing, and that's what I'm good at. My first job is to hire the person that's going to replace me because I don't like the next part, and that takes, I think some good a lot of self-understanding to know where you really enjoy it. And so I encourage people who want to get into the chaos of entrepreneurship to do it. I don't know if I was born to it or not, but it's good to get experience in the different ones. And if you are successful in your entrepreneurial career, there's a good chance you're going to be acquired and get that big company experience in any case as well. So
one of the other things that I think the two of you mentioned were either networks or advisors. So one of the things that I thought would be worth sharing is, we talked about being an entrepreneur can be lonely, being a CEO can be lonely. So what have you done? Have all of you thought about networking and how important that is, building advisory boards? You probably have boards as well. Maybe you could speak to that and the importance. I think sometimes that's something that with newer people might be overlooked.
Highland's been blessed with, there's two ways you could say it. If David were here, he says we've been blessed with great advisors. I see all the work that it takes to put together an advisory board, to find the key opinion leaders, to talk to them, find time in their schedules to explain your story and explain what you're doing and get them excited about it, and then give you feedback. And David was extremely good at that in the early days. We were able to get some great KOLs who were, they were encouraging. They're saying this, there's some possibilities here where, a lot of other people were saying that's crazy, it's never going to work. You're going to hear a lot of that if you're an entrepreneur. Like, you almost have to be a bit delusional. Like, you have to sort of say, I'm going to listen to all the experts and ignore their advice and keep going anyways because I believe in it. And it's not a bad quality to have. You have to, because you really will get a lot of advice that's saying you should not be doing this. Like, this is not going to work. It would have been done by someone else smarter than you if it was possible. So certainly that was the feeling we had at the beginning, and having good advisors, validating what your theory is, because you don't have all the information, you don't know if it's going to work. One good phase 1 trial does not mean this thing is going to go all the way through. So yeah, it's a very, very good idea to try and find the best possible advisory panel when you start out, because you do need someone to bounce ideas off and give you a sanity check.
Yeah. Absolutely. Any other?
I'm a huge believer in surrounding yourself with strong talent, with varying perspectives, but valuable perspectives in that. And that's, advisors come in many forms in that. They can be more formal advisors, your board of directors, your clinical board of advisors, and so on. They can be other CEOs, your spouse, whoever that is, that brings good perspective, good sounding board to help you through that. I have a group of other CEOs that we get together regularly to, just on a social basis to build those relationships, and that's extremely powerful because we can pick up the phone and bounce ideas off of each other with no challenges, because we're all sitting in the same type of scenario. I would say with the formal advisors, I would think long and hard about what values you want or what skills that you want to surround yourself with. Don't make the mistake of surrounding yourself with people you just because you like them or that they agree with you, because you won't get value. You want someone that will provide you good perspective, varying perspective on things. It still comes to you making the decision and pushing things forward, but you want someone that are individuals that can do that. They also bring an additional value that is extremely valuable, and that is, if you have the right people that can bring a substantial amount of credibility to you. And that's I always argue that, everyone comes to us and would ask, what's the most important thing you need? And I bet most of us would say money. I think most entrepreneurs will obviously go towards that, and then you can go to talent, and there's a number of other things that we need. And I would argue, and this wasn't me, it was a mentor of mine that always pushed this, is you need credibility, because with credibility you can get money, you can get other talent and that. So surrounding yourself with people that also, there's many ways to build credibility. One of them is to surround yourself with people that already have it and are willing to not just say, oh yeah, you can use my name, but stand up and say, hey, I'm associated here, spend the time with you, and that. And we're very, very lucky with some of the people that we've been able to engage at that real level. So.
Yeah, I agree. We're quite fortunate. We have a number of people who are willing to stand up and vouch for QOC. We don't have a formal advisory board that meets every so often and that's structured. We have a lot of more, I guess it would be a little bit more informal advisors from many walks of life. Just being a healthcare technology company, you do have to cover healthcare, technology, and business. And those three perspectives can be quite disparate depending on the nature of the topic. So we have been very fortunate, and we've really reached out through our networks in the beginning. Right from day one, we did that because we did have that thought of, are we completely crazy, or is this actually a good idea? And that had to be bounced off of people. And most importantly, we went out and talked to patients and providers who are right at the service level to really understand their needs and to make sure that we weren't just insane with our ideas. And I guess we're fortunate because we do a co-design process. With everything that we build, every implementation, we always have patients and providers actually working with us to build it. And so it opens up these amazing, unique opportunities where we just get advice, whether we ask for it or not. They're designing the product with us, they're customizing it with us. And so And we're just completely open to that. And sometimes we'll go in saying, oh, we think it should be this way, let's see if they go with that, and it turns out completely different. Not at all what we expected, but that's the thing that they're using. That's what's actually useful. So it's really just that, I guess, that openness.
Yeah, it's like you have instant focus groups.
Yes,
Almost,
we do.
right? That you can bounce ideas off of.
And I make one other comment.
Yes,
This
yeah.
is something we're talking, and it's coming from the senior executive or the entrepreneur. This is something that I think is important for everyone in their career, is at every level, and it's valuable to me to have my team out networking, building their own networks and that, because as entrepreneurs, as I said, are as small companies. My team doesn't have the resources that they would at a J&J to walk down the hall and get advice from someone. They need to reach out and build those sounding boards as well, and that can only help us.
That's an excellent point. I think, as you said, it's not just for entrepreneurs, but just in anything in walk of life that it's so important. And we tend sometimes, I think the millennials are a little better at networking. It's made it a lot easier with, Facebooks and other social media. But it really, really is important. And I think, speaking as a woman who's been reasonably successful, I think that, I maybe took a little too long to have built those networks, that the boys did that a lot better than we tended to. But it's probably a really good nugget of wisdom.